Mike check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I feel like this might be the last week that I have as someone who typically does collection purges to get rid of some of the fluff in my collection. And I'm saying that because it feels like selling video games, whether they be online or in store, has gotten more and more difficult. Um, Primarily because the values just are not there for lower tier games and even mid tier games. And it's kind of like we're in this weird space, right? So if you have very expensive games, highly desirable games, it's going to be difficult to sell those games because it's a very small market that's looking for those games, which is primarily going to just be made up of collectors. That's your market for any rare game, regardless of the system. It doesn't matter what it is. If the game is 50, 60 bucks, 70 bucks, especially if it's a retro game, you're not just selling that to a casual collector. If it is a newer game, like let's say it's a Switch game or PS4 game or PS5 game, Xbox One, odds are you probably didn't get that game for cheap. And if you did, it's probably not worth that much. So trying to flip it, the margins just aren't going to be there. And then when it comes to like mid-tier games, games that are worth between like 25 and like $45, the value for a lot of those types of games are dropping quickly. Like they're falling into the, low tier, at least from a pricing perspective, they're falling into that category. And so the retro gaming market and even the video game market as a whole has genuinely shrunk down to just either just gamers, like your gamer's gamer, or a retro gamer or retro game collector. And that market isn't as large as it felt over the last 4 years. I think over the last 4 years, it felt like the retro gaming market and the video game market was really huge just because of how fast things were selling online and how much things were selling for. Also, um, with mom and pop shops and places like GameStop participating in the craze, it kind of almost reinforced the idea that this was something that was hot and was going to be stay hot. But I don't think it's going to be that hot in 2025 for reasons that we all already know. But if you don't know, here are a few. Number one, hunting and picking up games for cheap is few and far between. The places that many used to go to find cheap games are gone. Most of those places don't even list their don't they, like your let's just start with thrift stores. Thrift stores, secondhand stores, most of those places no longer even leave video games on the shelf. There was a time where you could go into a lot of these thrift stores depending on where you're at in the country, right? Obviously, there's still some parts of the country where you can find some of this stuff. I'm not about to be driving all over the country looking for video games, and we're going to get to that in a second. But in most places, using Goodwill, for example, they don't even put the video games out in their stores for you to be able to buy them, especially if they have any significant value to them. So they're going to put them online and you got to go find them. And if you don't, if you're not willing to spend market price, then you're not going to get them. So you have that. You have GameStop, which has marked up all of their retro games to pretty much current market pricing. Mom and pop shops, for the most part, have always been current with their retro game pricing. So there's really no change or shock there. If anything, mom and pop shops it might revert back to them being the best place to buy retro games. The only way that you're really getting deals on video games is if you're actively looking for them all the time. And I only know because this is something that I used to do locally. Unfortunately, not everybody has the freedom, the liberty, the time, the energy to travel all over the place looking for video games. I used to do it. I got tired of it. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Because there's just better thing. Well, before it was fun, there was a fun factor to it. When it was a little bit easier. Now that it's become more competitive, it's more difficult. A lot of times when you get to places, whether they be yard sales or thrift stores, there's already 5 other people there ready to fight you for the deal. That's just not fun to me. To have to drive all over the place only to fight for deals is just lame. And then when you factor in the time, the gas, the energy, if it's not fun for you, if it's fun for you, then that's fine. But if it's not fun for you, then it's a waste of time. Um, and I, for one, just don't have that time, nor do I even want to put that type of time towards finding a video game. Because if I spent my entire weekend driving around to buy a bunch of video games that might get me, even if it got me $300 in profit, it still wouldn't be worth my time. So for me, it's become a thing where unless it's something you really enjoy doing, unless you're a person who has a video game business, a retro game business, you're a reseller full time, you have an Amazon store where you make money from it, if that's like what you do, then fine. I am the Y2K collector, not the Y2K reseller, not the Y2K. I am more into the collecting of video games and playing of video games than I am trying to find games to sell. Obviously, I want to find games for a deal, but it's not the same. And so with these changes, for me, I've made the decision to pretty much sell all the games that I cannot fit on a shelf in my office. I don't even want to call it a game room because there's a lot more to this room than just the video games that are in it. But I if there's an overflow, any of the overflow, I'm selling and I'm getting rid of it. Um, just because I want to make sure that if I'm not super sold on the game, then I don't need to have it in my collection. There were some special edition Switch games and some special edition PS Vita games and stuff like that I was willing to sell. Um, but I think instead of selling the stuff that I actually don't want to sell, I'm just gonna sell the fluff stuff and then really slow down on video game purchases. I do have a PS5 30th anniversary coming this month, so I'm excited about that. And I have maybe one or two PlayStation 5 games that I've got my eye on. I think all of you know the game, at least one of the games I'm talking about, which is Stellar Blade. That's a game that I have to get. Um, and then potentially Astrobot. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna take it really slow with the PlayStation 5. I had a commenter tell me that there's ways of getting PlayStation 5 games for cheap, and I'm sure there are, especially when there's like sales and promotions. The good thing about collecting for like current gen games is that you can take advantage of all like the current sales for them. So that's the good thing, right? It's not as hard as like trying to find retro games. You can just go to regular stores like Target, Walmart, Best Buy, GameStop, and find current gen games. So that's the good thing. But yeah, so that's the plan. It's a new week. It's a brand new week for me, and today is going to be made up of me taking these 3 boxes of games. I have 2 more boxes um that I'm going to be taking to a retro game shop that I know still buys these games. So I'm going to be doing that, and then I've also got a bunch of systems. I've got a Wii U, a Wii, a PS2, a 360. I've also got a DS Lite that I'm going to be taking in to sell and to get rid of as well. I also have a PlayStation 4 complete in box that I'm considering selling as well, but that one I may actually keep. Um, I really don't like the idea of having 2 PlayStation 4s, but one of them is brand new sealed. It's never been opened. So um, it might be cool to have that. Maybe later on down the line, maybe I'll sell it, maybe I won't. We'll see. We'll have to see how I feel about that. Um, but even that, I remember at the time that I got the PlayStation 4 complete in box, they were still selling PlayStation 4s because PlayStation 5s were still hard to get. Once like the floodgates opened on PS5, the price for PlayStation 4s tanked. Because even up until like 2022, you could still charge like $350 to $400 for a PS4, and then like it just dropped. So I say all that to say that yeah, there's definitely a change. And I love my collection. Like I love everything that I have in my collection. I love the games that I have, the games that I play. My collection is very broad. I have games for a wide variety of handhelds and systems, from the Genesis to the Super Nintendo, the N64, the Super Nintendo, the Vita, the PSP, the PS2, the PS1, Wii U, Switch, GameCube, DS, DS Lite, 3DS, the whole nine. I've got, Neo Geo in my collection, um, which is probably the most rare collection that I have. But yeah, I've got a lot of just like different things, Sega Saturn, Sega CD, Dreamcast, and a lot of these games and consoles, the good majority of them are games that I either had as a kid, or they're consoles that I played at a friend's house that I always wanted, and they're games that I really wanted. So I think that's how I'm gonna do my purge this year. I tried 3 times to purge in different ways. I tried doing some stuff online. I tried doing online sales, and those were really, really slow. I tried doing a swap meet, or not a swap meet, but yeah, kind of like a swap meet, like a trade event. That wasn't super successful. I sold some stuff, but that wasn't super successful. So now I think, with there only being a few more weeks left in the year, basically 5 to 6 weeks left in the year, I think this is going to be the good week to do the purge, just because I don't want to go any further into the year with this stuff. And perhaps there'll be more to come in 2025, but I think this is where I'm at with it for 2024. So I'll let you guys know what I decide to do. Maybe I'll grab some footage when I'm at the game store. I'll let you guys know what I decide to do. If I decide to just cash out on these games, or if I decide to take some store credit and pick up some stuff for the collection that I don't already have. I'd really rather just take all this stuff and convert it into maybe 1 or 2 really rare games, or really rare or expensive games, because I definitely don't want to come back with boxes of games. So heading out with about 5 boxes worth of retro games. Hopefully, I'll come back with maybe 1, 2, at best 3 games to be added to the collection. And I'll let you guys know how that turns out. But that does it for me. It's the Y2K Collector. It's Monday. Hopefully, you're having a great day. I had a fantastic weekend. It was really good. Still got some of that leftover lasagna, so I'm going to be attacking that. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take it easy.